down. All right, again, so thank you for joining our webinar today for our topic, Supporting Secure Attachment and Positive Parent-Child Relationships, presented by Dr. Mary Mones. Strong Minds, Strong Kids Psychology Canada offers monthly webinars that provide valuable insight and information to key adult caregivers, including teachers, early childhood educators, nurses, and parents who work with and live with babies, school-aged children, and youth. Check out our website, strongmindsstrongkids.org, for our webinar schedule. So first, to start us off, I'd like to acknowledge the land that we're on. Our head office is located on sacred land that has been a site of human activity for over 15,000 years. This land is the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of New Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, and the Wendat, and is now home to many diverse peoples. We acknowledge that the City of Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. We acknowledge these nations and any other recorded or unrecorded First Peoples who cared for the land as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land named Takaranto, where the trees meet the water, or the gathering place. As settlers, we entered into an agreement to share this land equitably. As settlers, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must also be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities. We are grateful for the opportunity to work with communities and on this territory. At Strong Minds, Strong Kids Psychology Canada, our mission is to nurture resilience in children and youth through the use of psychological science. Here's a little bit more about our programs.
Hello, and welcome to Strong Minds, Strong Kids Psychology Canada Wellness Webinar Series. We're delighted you've decided to join us today. At Strong Minds, Strong Kids Psychology Canada, we believe that prevention is the intervention needed. We can't wait until our kids suffer from a mental illness. That is why we promote mental well-being in kids before mental health issues begin. We are a registered charity with over 45 years of experience effectively nurturing resilience in kids with the use of psychological science. Our programs span the developmental stages of kids, starting as early as birth. Make the Connection is our attachment-based program that is aimed to improve parent-child relationships during the first 3 years. A secure attachment in the early years is proven to build the foundation for long-term healthy development. Make the Connection is designed to help parents and caregivers develop that secure attachment with their young ones. For over 20 years, Strong Minds, Strong Kids has been training educators and child-serving professionals in our resilience building programs. Kids have stress too, and stress lessons. From pre-kindergarten to grade 12, these programs help children and youth become healthier and more resilient by teaching them how to identify and manage their stress. Each program is linked to curriculum and offers psychologically sound strategies and tools that will help children and youth develop resilience and positive coping skills that will help them manage life's inevitable ups and downs. A critical pillar in nurturing resilience in children and youth is ensuring there is a supportive, caring adult in their life. We developed stressstrategies.ca, which is an interactive tool designed to help adults identify and manage their stress. The tool provides a variety of research-backed stress management strategies and guides you through questions which will lead you to the development of your own personalized stress management plan. Please go to stressstrategies.ca to create your action plan today. And don't forget to visit our website, www.strongmindsstrongkids.org, to learn more about our Make the Connection e-learning course, our resilience building training programs and facilitation guides. You'll find our library of free psychology-based webinars in a variety of booklets and tip sheets that will help you support children and youth in building the strongest foundation for mental health.
Okay, so before I introduce our presenter today, I'd just like to highlight that we are currently working on developing a direct-to-parent website for our Make the Connection ages 0 to 3 program that is expected to be launched in early 2022, which seemed fitting for me to mention today since Dr. Moats is talking about secure attachments and positive parent-child relationships. So stay tuned for more information. Also, I'd like to highlight our ongoing pre-K to K and grade 1 to 6 Kids Have Stress 2 virtual training, along with our grade 7 to 12 stress lessons for professionals, which help to increase positive coping skills for kids and teens when dealing with stress and also building their resilience. So we have upcoming trainings January to March, so please contact me if you'd like more information. Now on to our speaker. So today we're delighted to be joined by Dr. Mary Moats, and Dr. Moats is a registered clinical psychologist at Mother Craft's Breaking the Cycle program in Toronto. Dr. Moats' clinical experience is in the area of assessment and treatment of infants and young children whose development and mental health is at risk due to maternal substance misuse, as well as the related systemic factors and determinants of health. Her primary research interests are related to the mechanisms by which marginalized mothers are able to make changes to improve their own lives and the lives of their infants and young children. So welcome, Dr. Moats, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to you, and I'll allow you to share your screen.
Sorry, I know I'm saying all of this out loud, but
No, that's fine.
People that has to do things one step at a time. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to Strong Minds, Strong Kids for inviting me to speak with you today. As you know, my name is Mary. I use she, her pronouns. I am a 5th generation settler from Central Europe. And even though we've already had a more formal land acknowledgement from the region that I happen to be in as well, I just like to express my gratitude to the traditional inhabitants and the ethical caretakers of the land that I live and work on. I'm also a mom of 2 amazing adult children. And most relevant to this presentation, as you've heard, I'm a psychologist at the Mothercraft Breaking the Cycle program. Also, Siobhan, if anything is up with my sound or the presentation, you'll have to let me know because I'm not seeing anything but the presentation. So if you need me to do things differently, just jump in. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about breaking the cycle, but I wanted to give you some context for the work that I do and the lens from which I apply an attachment-based framework. So Breaking the Cycle is an early intervention program for infants and young children who are at risk for poor mental health and developmental outcomes because of maternal substance use and related factors. Our comprehensive and integrated interventions, which include Making the Connection, recognize that in order to support the well-being and resilience of young children, we need to take a holistic approach by promoting the health of pregnant people and of parents, which in our program are mothers, along with their young children. And we also recognize that the primary motivator and mechanism of intervention for our families is to support secure attachment and to build positive parent-child relationships. This slide represents many of the factors that lead to vulnerability in the families that we see. It also helps us to understand why secure attachments and positive parent-child relationships may not be as intuitive for our families, given their histories and their life circumstances. That being said, all the parents that I've ever met in my work and in my real life want what's best for their babies and for their children to have the best capacity for their lives. And then maybe just a note on language for this presentation. In order to include all the different ages of children and to respect all the different kinds of families, I tend to interchangeably use terms like infants, children, and kids when I'm talking about little people. as well as parent or caregiver when I'm talking about their related adults. Inherent in the Breaking the Cycle model or any holistic model of working with families is that babies exist in the context of relationships. They depend on their caregivers for all of their survival needs. And the relationship between the baby and the caregiver is a mutually reinforcing system so that it ultimately promotes the physical and emotional development of the baby. And also, if we want to talk about constructs like resilience, babies aren't born resilient. They develop resilience through their family environment and within their relationships with others in their family. So what is attachment then? And where does it fit into supporting infants and children? The foremothers and forefathers of attachment describe it as a deep and enduring emotional bond that connects one person to another across time and space, as well as a lasting psychological connectedness between human beings. Attachment theory helps us to understand how the parent-child relationship emerges and how this influences subsequent development. The behaviors and mechanisms of attachment may not look exactly the same between cultures, but that emotional bond and connectedness between parents and children, and the need for children to use their caregivers to ensure their safety and security has been described across cultures. A question that's really common is the difference between attachment and bonding, as they're often used interchangeably. So bonding is all about the parent. It's that feeling surge of love and tenderness for a baby that can develop either during the pregnancy or shortly after the birth, or even a few months later. So bonding is not a dyadic construct. It does not relate to the baby's needs or feelings. Attachment, on the other hand, is about both the parent and the baby. It's about how they build a relationship over time that ultimately helps the baby to feel safe, secure, and loved. It also teaches the baby how to be in a relationship by knowing what to expect from others in relationships and how they deserve to be treated in relationships. Attachment and bonding go hand in hand, however, because it's those feelings of love and tenderness that a parent has for a baby that help to create that sense of safety and security that babies need to feel love in relationships. And luckily, babies come primed with really excellent strategies to promote their survival by keeping their caregivers close to them. And they show us these strategies in their day-to-day interactions with us by smiling or clinging or crying at times when they want us to meet their needs. But it's the way that the caregivers respond to these needs which dictates whether the child's attachment system will become activated. Babies use their caregivers as a secure base to understand and explore their world. But when they are frightened, sick, hurt, or overwhelmed, they use those proximity-seeking behaviors to draw the parents close to them so that they can use their parents as a safe haven to manage those needs and those emotions. A baby's experience of their parents' responsiveness at these times provides a blueprint for babies to know what they should expect and what they deserve in relationships. The attachment system for a baby is always present, but we talk about it becoming activated in situations where babies need it most. They can demonstrate this activation in a variety of ways. They can follow their caregivers with their eyes or physically follow them to keep them close, especially in new situations. They can cry when a parent leaves to signal to them to come back. They can become anxious or upset when a parent is not present. They can get really excited when a parent returns. They can get clingy when they're worried that a caregiver might leave, or they can become upset or fearful in the presence of strangers. So what does the activated attachment system look like? In this short video of the still face experiment, which was developed in the mid-1970s, we can see that infants are able to demonstrate capacity for emotional attunement with a parent. But the video also shows us what happens when the activated attachment system is ignored.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby, who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, come on, why aren't we doing this? Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it. They actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on, that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
So you could clearly see how that baby's attachment system was activated and the strategies that she used to try to get the mother back to her, and so that she could feel secure in the context of that relationship. And the good, the bad, and the ugly that Dr. Tronick refers to is the way in which babies develop expectations about safety in relationships. This is one of my favorite models for helping parents to understand the importance of attachment. The circle of security was developed as a clinical intervention, but it's a really useful roadmap to demonstrate the attachment process. I don't receive any endorsements from Circle of Security, but I will let you know that they have lots of free resources on their website, which can be really helpful to support parents, even when you're not using the intervention. The hands at the left of the circle represent the parents, as the secure base and safe haven for children to use as they navigate their world. And briefly, as the child moves around the circle, they use their parents to support them to explore and learn, but also to be there to provide protection and comfort when the child becomes dysregulated or overwhelmed. The next slide is a short video that will provide a really great explanation of how this attachment parenting model works.
Parents, we all wonder if we're getting it right. We want to know we're meeting our children's needs, helping them grow, and giving them all that we can. We try to combine our own experience of being parented with the advice of others and our own instincts and beliefs about what is best. And still, we so often worry that we're not succeeding. In a world that is always offering the next best parenting solution, the circle of security is based on decades of attachment research. Unlike many behavioral perspectives, it offers relationship tools to provide a new way of understanding your children's needs, creating lasting security for them and more satisfaction for you. The circle graphic has been created to help you know what to look for, so you can read your children's behavior to guide you in meeting their needs. It's really not complicated. People of all ages have attachment needs. These needs can be divided in 3 ways. Let's look at this child. First, he needs to know the freedom and confidence to go out and explore his world. Second, he needs to feel assured that whenever he's ready, he can come back for comfort and protection. Third, he needs his caregiver to be in charge in a kind way. 3 basic needs that can be thought of as going out on the circle, coming in on the circle, and hands on the circle. Let's have a look in more detail. Feeling safe and supported, our children want to discover their world. When going out, they need to know that their exploration is encouraged, that we're right there watching over them, delighting in them, offering help when needed, and ready to enjoy their new adventures with them. And when they're coming in, they need us to refill their emotional cup. This means organizing their emotions and letting them know we are delighted to welcome them back, protect, comfort, and understand them. The key for us as parents is to remain strong and kind while knowing when to encourage their going out into the world and how to be available to welcome them back to us. It's crucial that we learn to identify our children's needs like this, because misreading them, or worse, missing them altogether, can cause pain and frustration. We all know how uncomfortable it can be to be held too close when we want to be out exploring, or kept at a distance when we need emotional support, or simply to be without someone who is bigger, stronger, wiser and kind, who we can trust to understand what we need when we're feeling lost, confused, or out of control. When a child misbehaves, the cause is often rooted in how safe and secure they're feeling. So it's not surprising that they behave well when a parent learns to tune into their child's needs on the circle in this way. And because our needs on the circle never disappear, learning to read cues can help you better understand and meet the needs of people of all ages, including your own. So that's all there is to it. Just know that at any given moment, your child is somewhere on the circle asking you to meet a need. Support my going out. Welcome my coming in. Be the hands that keep me safe by staying in charge and committed to helping me feel connected. And please remember this, there's no such thing as perfect parenting. At Circle of Security, we've come to realize that good enough is, well, good enough. All of us are going to miss needs on the circle time and again. Welcome to the club. But if we meet our children's needs enough of the time, the results will be happier, healthier, more secure children, and parents too.
This is a framework that we use with parents at Breaking the Cycle all of the time. We have pictures of the circle up in the center. We have them in the bathrooms. And it's, we often call it the keys to parenting, right? That it's been a really helpful way for us to think about attachment and to, have a map for attachment. And one of the applications that I like best about the Circle of Security roadmap is that it can be applied to parenting children of all ages. So that with infants, the circles are not as big and may not include the child physically moving away from the parent, whereas in older children and even teenagers, the circles are much bigger. The refueling needs are maybe not as frequent, but the circles are still there when you look for them. The way that a child uses their attachment system can look different based on the child's experiences of their parents' behavior. So as we've seen with the two videos, a caregiver's response, and particularly their repeated responses, ultimately shape a child's understanding of what they can expect in relationships. When children are responded to by the good enough parent in ways that are consistent and sensitive most of the time, they develop an attachment style that has been called secure. This is where a child feels like they can rely on their parents to attend to their needs for proximity, for emotional support, and for protection. When a caregiver is unpredictable in responding to an infant or reacts in ways that are insensitive to the infant's needs or discourages the infant from exploring their world, so from using that top part of the circle, the infant can develop feelings of anxiety around separating from the caregiver and may not feel reassured when the caregiver returns. And this has been referred to as an insecure ambivalent attachment style. In contrast, an insecure avoidant style of attachment can develop when a caregiver is inconsistently unresponsive to the child's needs and to come in on the bottom of the circle for comfort and refueling. So a child in this case may act as if they don't need comfort from the parent because they don't depend on it being available to them. When a parent is not able to be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind, their behavior and reactions can become the source of the fear and distress for a child, as opposed to the comfort. Children in this case lack an effective strategy to feel safe and secure and to have their needs met. The infant's inability to find a solution to their distress has been called fear without solution and often leads to what is called a disorganized pattern of attachment. With this pattern, the child's strategies are not sufficient to restore feelings of safety using the presence of the person that is supposed to be their attachment figure. And maybe perhaps what I'll note here as well is that it is completely possible for a child to have the capacity for different types of attachments with different caregivers based on that caregiver's responsivity to them and the child's relationship with the caregiver. So there could be two different styles of attachment between parents, with a caregiver at childcare, or with other important adults like grandparents and aunties who play a caregiving role. Clinical observations and research have taught us that there is a relative amount of stability over time in how we engage in relationships based on our childhood attachment experiences. The relationship patterns that are developed in childhood with our caregivers can endure into our adult relationships with others. So this isn't a perfect correlation. It is not a destiny. There are opportunities to change attachment patterns within healthy relationships later in life. It's just harder work than having developed healthy relationships early on. These are some of the most common factors that make it tricky for parents to be consistently sensitive and responsive to their children in the development of secure attachments. Again, I want to be really clear that just because one of these factors is present, It does not automatically mean that there will be any kind of impairment in the attachment relationship, but having one of these factors present can make it more difficult for parents to be responsive in a way that supports secure attachment.
Excuse me, Mary, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You're a really fascinating presentation. I think we have a few folks here who are having a little bit of difficulty seeing the slides. Wondering if there's any way to adjust your view if possible.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, yeah, some of us see it, but if not, like just try your best.
No, but like, are they, because it's, I mean, what I think
yeah.
I'm sharing is a full screen monitor. So is it because this
I think so. We have some people who can see just fine and some who can't. So maybe if that's okay, go ahead with your presentation and then we'll work on it for next webinar. Sorry, folks. We'll send you the video.
Do you want me to stop sharing and reshare and see if that helps? Or should I just go on?
I mean, sure, you can try if it doesn't interrupt you too much though. And then just go on after that then.
Okay, so I have stopped and I will reshare. Okay, can you see it again?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay.
So I just say carry on. Sorry, folks, for those who are having some trouble, but
yeah, I'm really sorry about that too.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, so just because one of these factors are present, it doesn't mean that things are going to be impaired. But we do know that when parents have an awareness of these challenges and are working towards reducing them as barriers to responding to children, that this can help promote positive parent-child relationships. So one of the barriers that we see the most in our work at Breaking the Cycle is when a parent has a history of trauma. And in this case, they may not have had positive relationships with their own caregivers, or they may have lacked completely a positive adult role model in their own childhood, which means that they just don't have that blueprint of how to parent positively. There can also be differences in the temperament or personality styles between a parent and a child that impact the fit in the relationship. For example, if a parent has an ongoing or more intense style of interaction and is maybe a little bit intrusive in their interactions, and they have a child who's more cautious and reserved, this may have an impact on how the child feels about seeking comfort from the caregiver. Adults who struggle with addictions or certain mental health challenges may have difficulty with being consistently physically and emotionally responsive to the child, or parents who are isolated or don't have anyone to fill their own emotional cup may not always have the internal resources to be a consistent or sensitive in responding to their child. But what I want to do is take some time to focus on strategies that parents can use on a daily basis to support positive relationships and secure attachments with their children. One of the first strategies refers to that bottom part of the circle of security, where we need to welcome our kids back to that safe haven that we provide when they are hurt, upset, frightened, or dysregulated. This helps children to remember that there's someone there for them to meet their needs in times of distress, and that will make them feel better. And depending on the age of the child, it doesn't always mean that we need to be physically available at these times. Like for older children, sometimes we can be available to them through video call or text, or even just by yelling from the other room that we're there for them. And again, I'll highlight the point that we don't need to be 100% perfect in our responsivity to our children. We just need to be that good enough parent most of the time. And then that's enough for children to be able to develop the sense of security and trust. The second strategy is a reference to the top of the circle, where as caregivers, we need to respond to children and notice them and encourage them so that they develop the confidence that they need to explore their world with the knowledge that we are there as a secure base to support them. Even when our children are not directly in our presence, they use that feeling of security and confidence that we provide for them to help them to learn and explore. And this can even be in the form like of a special object or a lovey that they have that represents the secure base that we provide to them. And an example of that is my son, who is now 22. When he was little and going to childcare, he always took this little pillow with him that he called his Poe, and it stayed in his cubby with him every day except for nap time or during times when he was feeling a bit insecure, and he would use it and go over to his cubby and give it a little cuddle and start to feel more confident again, and then was able to go off and play with his friends. He would kill me if he knew that I talked about that example, but no one's going to tell him. The third strategy refers to the fact that to support children to feel safe and secure, that they need to have reasonable and age-appropriate sense of trust in the world. And that's not to say we don't need to prepare our kids for the realities of what their experiences might be, or that we don't need to think about personal and community safety. But there just needs to be a balance of making sure that kids are not always worried about what might happen to them. And that, sometimes there are things that are adult worries that need to stay with adults and that don't need to be worries for kids. And that the reassurance can come from them knowing that we're the ones that are bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind, and we're the person that's going to look out for them, and that they can come to us when they're in distress, and that we will do our best to make things okay. So an example might be related to sort of the overall tone around school, right? That school is a safe place for you to go and learn. But if anything happens to make you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, you can come and tell me. I will listen to you, and I will find a way to make you feel better. Because regardless of how much we try to find that, to provide that secure base and safe haven for our kids, and no matter how old they are, there are going to be times when something happens to cause them distress or that is scary for them. So we have to be able to help them integrate those experiences and repair from them. Again, this will look different based on the age of the child. So with babies and young children, they may cry or become upset at a reminder of a scary situation. And at those times, our job is to hold them and soothe them and to help them physically regulate their emotions every time they feel that distress. Whereas with older kids, they may need us to read the same book over and over again, or tell the same story repeatedly, or play out a story until they feel like they've mastered or resolved what has happened. The kids also need to hold on to joyful feelings and stories and memories as a way to help them feel safe and secure. And one of the ways to do this in the context of the family is to develop predictable family routines and traditions. And these don't need to be formal activities that require a lot of effort or time, although they can. But they, can be related to things you do on a daily basis with your child, like a positive affirmation or a prayer together, or maybe stand in front of the mirror and do a power pose together. I remember when my nieces were babies, my sister literally had a song for every routine of the day. And even when the girls were too little to understand time, they knew what was happening because of what song she would sing. Family traditions can be weekly activities, like we always eat pizza on the couch on Friday, or they can also be occasional traditions built around cultural practices, holidays, and family events. Regardless, they help children to understand what to expect as a member of their family, as well as to feel grounded in their family culture. Children are also able to feel more secure when they don't have to feel worried about where their caregiver is or when they might come back. As an example, with babies, it might help to talk or sing to them when we have to be out of the room for a few minutes and can't immediately respond. With older children, sometimes they might need like a physical reminder of us, or when we might be back. So we can use timers or clocks when we're back in a short period of time. Over longer period of times, we can use like photos or special objects that will come to remind them of when we will come back. I have another sister with a 3-year-old daughter who uses visual calendars amazingly. She not only uses them for special events like, we're going to the zoo on Saturday, but she also uses them to help her daughter see visually when her parents will come back, like if one of them has to go away for work, so she knows she could count the sleeps until her parent gets back. And that's a really helpful way to organize her world and to help her feel safe. And then the final strategy that I'll talk about to promote secure attachment is to try as best we can to react to our children in a way that is positive and predictable. When we are bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind, most of the time, children come to understand that they should expect to be treated with kindness in relationships. And these will become the kinds of relationships that are comfortable for them, that they will seek out, that they will feel like they deserve, and that they will expect as they get older. Strong Minds, Strong Kids hosted a webinar presentation about a year ago. It was just over a year, I think, about prenatal attachment, presented by Dr. Noor Zaki, Michael Blugerman, and Michael Trout. I highly recommend it if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet. They talked about that there are factors like the ones listed here that can impact attachment, even in the prenatal period. And they described how this occurs, so I'm not going to go into that right now. But really the key message is it's never too early to help parents think about positive relationships and healthy attachments with their children. In fact, there are a number of prenatal activities that support early relationships, including those around health promotion, like eating well and abstaining from harmful substances, nurturance, like singing to or stroking the belly, and physical preparation for birth, like getting the home ready. These are the things that they can both help prepare the expectant person for parenthood and support the impending attachment of the baby. Another area that's really important to think about fostering attachment is in childcare, because those of us who have kids that go to childcare or have been to childcare, they spend a big part of their day there. And ECEs and other caregivers become important attachment figures for infants and young children. So some important strategies can include making sure that early childhood educators are trained in attachment-based frameworks so they have an understanding of children's needs for security. Ensuring that there are adequate teacher-child ratios so that early childhood educators have more opportunity to be responsive to an individual child when it's needed. Using primary caregiver models where children are assigned to a particular primary caregiver, so there's an opportunity for that child to build an attachment with that person. Adequate support for transitions like meal times and going outside. These are times when especially sensitive kids they're more likely to need a little extra support and attention from their caregiver. So having extra hands at these times can be helpful to promote a sense of security for all children. Programming that supports the individual needs of each child, including their social, emotional, developmental needs, is important in promoting positive relationships. An environment where there are active and responsive interactions between children and their caregivers, so the circle of security again, will encourage children to use their caregivers to support their play and regulate their emotions. Similar to what I mentioned about incorporating traditions into the family environment, family involvement and celebrating cultural traditions in the childcare environment helps children to develop a sense of security. And finally, having comprehensive integrated services like resource teachers for the classroom supports early childhood educators in being able to understand and meet children's individual needs, as well as to provide a level of security that children require to form secure attachments. I just wanted to finish with this little video from 0 to 3, which is an amazing organization that supports the understanding of infants and young children. It gives some practical suggestions about how to foster attachment through everyday moments and magic.
If you're like most parents, you have an image of the kind of person you want your child to grow up to be. Successful, smart, kind, thoughtful, a good friend. The great news is that you play a major role in making this happen. And it's not by using flashcards or following some academic training plan. It turns out, according to a large body of research, that the key is providing something known simply as responsive care. Responsive care. Never heard of it? Most people haven't. So what exactly is responsive care? Responsive care is the process of watching and tuning in to your child's cues and thinking about what his behavior might mean, and then responding in a sensitive way. By doing this, you meet your child's physical needs, but just as important, his emotional needs as well. These parents watch closely to understand what their baby's actions are telling them. Rubbing his eyes and yawning is this baby's way of saying, "Mommy, Daddy, I'm sleepy." And his parents know just what he means and give him just what he needs. While this may seem pretty ordinary, when you respond to your child's unique needs, the effect is quite extraordinary. Why? Because study after study has found that this kind of parenting leads to children building what we call a secure attachment, a warm, trusting relationship with his or her parents. And secure attachments in early childhood lead to a whole host of positive outcomes for children that can last into adulthood. It all starts in a baby's first days of life. Research shows that babies whose parents respond promptly to their cries and provide comfort actually cry less when they become toddlers. Surprising, isn't it? So many people think that comforting a crying baby is spoiling them, but it's not. When parents respond to and comfort their babies, their little ones learn that they can trust their parents. This creates feelings of safety and security. Over time, these children experience less anxiety and distress. They have learned that their parents will understand and respond to their needs. Children who experience responsive care and have strong, positive relationships with their parents also tend to be more independent and develop stronger problem-solving skills, key factors in doing well in school. Research also shows that when parents provide responsive care by taking turns in their interactions with their young children, following their child's lead, expressing positive feelings, and providing age-appropriate toys, books, and other activities, children are more likely to develop strong language, cognitive, and social skills later on. Parents help build their children's self-esteem when they offer support and encouragement to keep on trying when faced with a difficult task. The ability to persist at solving a problem builds children's confidence that they can master the challenges they face. So if responsive care is critical for all of these really positive outcomes, how do you do it? The key? Be a good observer. Tune in to your child's unique way of communicating what he is thinking and feeling. Discover what she likes and dislikes. It's like being a detective. Research shows that when parents take the time to think about what their child's behavior might mean and how they might be feeling, their children are better able to understand the emotions and perspectives of others. Another important feature of responsive care has to do with you, with parents managing their own thoughts and reactions. That means tuning into your own feelings, especially when your child's behavior pushes your buttons. Learning to manage your feelings and reactions is a critical part of responsive parenting. Feelings are not right or wrong. It's what you do with your feelings that can be helpful or not so helpful. When you stay calm and manage your feelings and reactions, it's easier to choose the response that will be most useful for the situation and for your little one. So what does all this mean? You matter. When you provide your young child with responsive care, it's the gift that keeps on giving. The bond you share with your baby becomes a blueprint she will take with her forever, her first and most important model of a loving relationship. Model of a loving relationship.
Sorry about that. Finally, I'd like to leave you with some resources that might be helpful if you're looking for more information about attachment and fostering positive parent-child relationships. Many of these resources I've already referenced in the presentation, but they are my favorites, so I wanted to make sure that you had them as well. Thanks so much for being here today, and a repeat thank you to Strong Minds, Strong Kids for asking me to present.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moats. It was a great presentation. And yeah, I see that we do have some questions in the Q&A. I'm aware of the time, but before that, I want to let everyone know that I just added the survey link for the evaluation of this webinar. Please open it before the session ends to ensure you have the link, or we'll also be sending it in the follow-up email to you. So let's see if we can, we have 3 questions. I want to see if we can get through these, okay?
Sure.
And if you guys have to go to work, feel free to hop off too, but let's just go ahead, Mary.
Just that I saw that there was a request to share the resource slide again, so I'm just going to put it up for 2 seconds.
Sure, no problem. So while that resource slide is up, let's start with our first question. So this question is from Iman, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. Sorry if I'm not. So the question is, my infant had an unhealthy attachment with me. She always cries whenever she doesn't see me within an instant, even if I'm going across the same room. Her needs are met, fed, cleaned, played with. She was like this since birth, and so I can't say it's a learned behavior. Any advice for my case?
You know, so maybe first I'll start with empathizing. My second little bean, who is now 18, so I'm a bit on the other side of this, was somebody who really needed me a lot of the time too. We always joked that she was pretty much attached to me for the first couple of years of her life. And it almost felt sometimes like it didn't matter how much I kept her close, that maybe it wasn't enough time for her, right? So I think that that's where that model of being the good enough parent and about being responsive absolutely as much as you can is helpful, because it reminds us that we don't need to be perfect all the time. And even if there are times where it feels like she needs you, and you can't always, you know, be with her, be responsive, know that she can still, you know, have that healthy attachment with you. You know, and then I'll just say again, being on the other side, that I have a fabulous human, even though sometimes it felt like that I wasn't always with her as much as she wanted. So, you know, we can just do our best and think about sort of that moving out and moving back on the circle and being there for her as much as you can. And And, and that's our job as parents. And then to even sometimes, there were times where I had to say to her, like, I'm sorry that when she was a bit older, right? And she still needed me. That's what she would say. That, you can say, I'm sorry that I needed to do this, but now I'm here with you.
Great, thank you for that. Our next question, at what age do children start wanting to explore or leave the secure base?
Yeah, so you know what, it almost starts like right away, because it's not always physical, right? So sometimes even when you're holding your baby, when they're very little, them turning their head and looking at something different for a while is the baby's way of making that small circle, right? They're looking out, they're going out on the circle, and then they realize they've had too much, and then they come back and refuel, right? So I think it's something that happens from birth. And that need to explore is how they learn about their world too, right? Because they're looking at something that's different, taking in information about it, processing it, and coming back.
Great, thanks. Next question is from Judy. Judy asks, what is the best way to help a child 6 years old when the mother cannot meet her needs due to mental health and addiction issues?
Yeah.
Father is present, trying her best, meeting all this, grieving the loss of her mother, no access since the mother refuses to attend supervised visits.
For sure. Yeah. And, I can appreciate that situation too, because that is the circumstance for a lot of the families that we work with here at Breaking the Cycle. And really what I would just remember is that even if a baby has one, or child, I know we're talking about a 6-year-old, I use the word baby for everything, but even when a child has one healthy, safe, and secure relationship, like that's good, right? And that still provides them with that role model of what healthy relationships look like, so that they know to look for that kind of relationship moving forward. And so obviously the more secure relationships that the child can have. So if there's a father, but maybe there's, a caregiver or a teacher or an auntie, to have good relationships with, that's better. I'm sorry about the situation with the mom, but sometimes life is what it is. And that we just have to make sure to support that resilience and support and buffer those other kinds of relationships.
Great, thanks. And I'm going to slide one more question in there. And if we don't get to everybody's questions, we'll follow up after the webinar today. So this question is from Erin. Erin asks, when you spoke about babies not being born with resiliency, can you outline briefly how attachment directly builds resiliency?
Yeah, I think resiliency builds because of all kinds of situations that we encounter throughout our lives. So for instance, things that might be tricky for babies are when they want to reach something and they can't, and that makes them super frustrated. And they develop skills, like their motor skills to be able to reach things, and that helps to soothe their frustration, right? Like, I think that resiliency is something that builds through experience. And because the experience of babies and young children is in that context of relationships, that's where they learn how to deal with situations that come up. So a lot of times it's family related at first, it's developmentally related. And then when they get older and move out into the community, the more experiences they've had with things that are tricky, but repair helps to build that confidence and build that resiliency. And so I'm going to just say even about repair too, right? When we're not perfect as parents, when we come back, and even like that video, the still face video, right? The mom was not, responsive in those moments, but when she turned back and repaired with her baby, that helps to build her baby's resiliency to understand that the mom will be there the next time, right? So it's just those life experiences with repair in different situations. Sorry, that was a bit rambly.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Moats. So again, we'll get to the other Q&A questions that we weren't able to get to today, but thank you so much for coming. And on behalf of Strong Minds, Strong Kids Psychology Canada, thank you again, Dr. Moats, for sharing your expertise with us today. We hope you will join us for another webinar in the future, we're hoping. And thank you to our community across the country for joining us. We look forward to your feedback, and we hope you enjoy your holiday season and make meaningful attachments. Thank you. Bye-bye.